We're at 6:31. That is me. Gotta be me. Make sure everything's off here. Do it like that. Oh, and this is me here too. Okay. Now we're square. Sorry about that. You can hear me all night echoing. Turn this off. Audio visual. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're getting ready to roll here. Welcome everyone to our July 2023 meeting of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. I'm John Davey, the chair. We have Vice Chair Tim White over here, Vice Chair Bob Williams over here. I'm looking at Vice Chair John Raslier right there. He's virtual with us tonight. Welcome, John. I'm looking to see. I don't see Brooke in yet. So our other Vice Chair will be joining us shortly, I'm sure. So welcome everyone tonight. We didn't know we were going to have a meeting tonight. It looked like kind of light. Now it looks like it's kind of busy. So we have a lot of information, nothing that's necessarily actionable, but we wanted to share with everyone the updates that are available so we all know what's going on here in the community. So as we move ahead, it's hard to drive and talk at the same time. Let me just go ahead and throw this up here. And it is that one. I think we're good. Okay. So the first order of business as we get started tonight, call a meeting to order. And if there's no objections, we're going to go ahead and adopt the meeting agenda. No objections? Good deal. So we start with an opportunity for public comment for anything that's not on our agenda tonight. And before we get going, these are on the tables out here. If you need to talk, there's a microphone at that podium. This button, you press it as long as it's green. Our Zoom attendees will hear you, and the recording will get you as well. So we want to make sure that we're clear in the microphone so everybody can hear what's going on. So as we open it up for public comment, again, it's for materials that are not on our agenda tonight. If there's somebody in the room, I know, George, are you ready? You want to do it from there with the microphone, or you want to be up here at the podium? Thank you. And it's good to see you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Davey and members of the APAC. I'm George Carpenter. I'm with Wind Communities, and I am here tonight. I want to make a quick announcement during your public comment on something that's not on the agenda, but I'm with Wind Communities, and our company is the owner of the property that was formerly the Project Frontier site, and that project is now gone. But I want to give you an update on what our plans are with the property. Following Project Frontier withdrawing their application, we met with some of our neighbors at Blackstone, neighbors at Heritage, and I want to thank Chuck King and Tom Fox for helping connect us with the folks at Blackstone, and George Steed and Bob Williams from the Heritage for helping us get in contact with some of their folks. We've had probably 4 meetings or so, and been in front of maybe 50 people talking about our application for Creekside Village, which was the application that we originally had into the county back in 2021. And I just want to make crystal clear, we are not Dermody. We are not the people who proposed Project Frontier. We entered into a purchase and sale agreement, and we signed a non-disclosure agreement like the county did. And so, we weren't able to talk about it or be involved, but they're gone. And so we're here now. And I just wanted to let you know that after meeting with community groups and getting feedback, we are getting ready to tell the county tomorrow officially that we'd like to unfreeze our residential application and begin processing the specific plan to bring the Creekside Village project forward. And so, I want to let the APAC know that at the right time, we want to come back and meet with you. We know that sometimes you form a subcommittee to dig into the details. We'll be doing an EIR in Creekside Village. It'll have a traffic study. And so, we'll want to, bring that through APAC and show you what the findings are and talk to you about that. In talking with some of the community groups, we've heard things like lights and noise and air quality and schools are important. And so we'll plan to study all of those things through the process. We estimate it to take 18 to 24 months to get through the county, but we're committed to processing the application, moving forward with it. We think it's good for us. It's good for the community to get some certainty as to what the future land uses are there. So I just wanted to make that announcement tonight and let you know what our plans are.
And I'll ask a question before you sit down.
Okay.
So I know you, Wynn has been very generous with your time. You've come to APAC at least 4 times, I think, talking about Creekside. And I know your scoping meeting, it was virtual, right?
It was during COVID.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. I was trying to remember the timeline. So my question would be, so the scoping meeting, that's still valid because you had all that input then? Do you anticipate that you'll be asked to do another one, or?
There's no final decision on that made, and we need to work through those details with the county. Our application is going to be essentially what was before the county before, so not a lot has changed on that. And so we don't anticipate another scoping meeting or another J6 meeting, but we do anticipate doing a lot more community meetings. Both Blackstone and Heritage have invited us back once we have more details to meet with a larger group. So we plan to do that and plan to come to APAC in whatever form you feel is appropriate.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, just everyone's excited to hear what might be ahead.
Okay,
Thank you, George.
And before, George, before you get away, I'd like to make a comment if I could. And that basically is to thank everybody involved with WIN and being so transparent with the community. I think it sets a new bar for applicants for development to actually do that and then actually be as open as you have been. There's a lot of questions, obviously, that still need to be answered, and there's more questions than answers at this stage. But again, thank you for doing what you have. Also want to call out the citizens for Dorado Hills and also the concerned residents of Heritage Village for also participating in this whole activity. I think it shows that the community can get together, particularly you, Chuck, George. Tom is not here, I don't think, tonight, but it does show that communities can get together and hammer out this issue without having to get into the kind of avail we had with Project Frontier. So thanks again for being that open.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. That was one thing as an observer watching what happened. A lack of communication, a lack of transparency were lessons learned, and I certainly want to be open, transparent, communicate with you, and be a source of information for you about the property.
Scoping meeting. Not a big fan of virtual scoping meetings. They only started when we had COVID and people weren't getting together. I think a lot is lost in a virtual meeting because you don't have the maps in front of you. People are looking at their phone or their iPad or their computer. The county is controlling questions. You don't have that back and forth that a traditional scoping meeting has allowed. So you're reopening your project, but I think if it's possible, and if you guys are open to it, I think another in-person scoping meeting, whether it's at this fire station or it's at one of the churches or one of the other meeting halls, would be important because the virtual ones are pretty much people work, whether they're working at home or whether they're going to work, driving to work, working in an office. A lot of people can't participate. But when you have a scoping meeting at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 8, when you've got representatives from yourselves, the developers, you've got the engineers who can answer the technical questions, you've got the county staff there who's also collecting comment cards so people can get instant questions and the county will respond to them later. So if it's at all possible, and if you're willing to do it, I think an in-person scoping meeting would benefit the entire community and your organization.
Okay, thanks, Tim. That's good feedback.
And before you get away completely, George, our friend John Reslier has got his hand up, and John, we're dying to hear from you.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to, I'd like to remind everyone that WIN did not come to Four Seasons. We did send some residents from Four Seasons, I believe, to the meeting at Heritage.
Yes.
And I think part of the reason was that you didn't come to Four Seasons was that we didn't organize it well enough. And I want to ask you to make an effort to make sure that you do come to Four Seasons when you do an outreach to Heritage and to Blackstone. So I'm asking that now as a resident of Four Seasons and the president of the Four Seasons Civic League and the vice chair of APAC. So if that could be done, we would be most appreciative. And I would ask that you would contact me directly and I'll set it up for you.
I hear Mr. Razzler and can commit that we will definitely make at least one stop at Four Seasons and do a community discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you turn your microphone on? Is it on? As long as it's green, you can go.
Yeah, may I ask, where is the proposed location of this project?
This is on the site that was previously proposed for Project Frontier at the south end of the El Dorado Hills Business Park.
Oh, that project, okay, thank you.
Thanks, George. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm blind. I did not see, I apologize. You can put on yes, as long as it's green, you're good.
Okay. Hello. I'll use this as my public comment time. Kelly Nullabaya. First of all, on behalf of the Republican Central Committee, we also would like to thank you all for all the hard work you did for, and I call it what it is, Project Amazon. I will never call it Project Frontier. I'm about transparency. That was a really good example of when community comes together to do the right thing. And we thank George Turnbull especially for also his help. One thing I would really like moving forward, and I know my goal as a citizen and also our goal in accountability, which is really what our committee is about. It's not elections, it's accountability, is we really need to also be engaging. I know we like to say, oh, this is a Blackstone issue, this is a Four Seasons issue, and we label each other. We're a community. And what happens is when we limit the discussion to the people living in the area, that disengages the people who don't, and it makes us feel less as a community. I, for one, will be impacted, though I live off Green Valley and Salmon Falls. Why? I have a granddaughter that goes to John Adams School. I have to drive back and forth there every day. I have a husband who gets on Highway 50 every day. We hit Business Park a lot. We make our shopping choices dependent on whether we want to go the back way to Folsom or over to Town Center. Again, usually those choices are due to the traffic. We have an active role in our schools, which are impacted. That affects the community, needing to get kids into schools, being on waiting lists, having lotteries to get into our charter schools. So I really encourage you, if you can. Will people come from all over? I don't know. But if we have an El Dorado Hills, isn't that the new point of El Dorado Hills Citizen? And to destigmatize it as a this issue or that issue, but this is neighbor, helping neighbor, for the benefit of El Dorado Hills and eventually the benefit of El Dorado County. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, George. Up there.
Hello. Chuck King, Citizens in Support of El Dorado Hills. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes. I want to take this time to thank Tom Wynn and George Carpenter. When Project Frontier withdrew, we immediately stepped out, asked them to talk to us, and they engaged us, and they've never quit. We asked them to be transparent, and they have never quit. We asked them to listen to the needs and the concerns of those in the area, and they have not quit. We've had 4 meetings with them ourselves when I speak about Citizens in Support of El Dorado Hills and Heritage Park Group. And they have taken notes, like you saw George taking a few minutes ago at every one of those meetings, and they always come back with answers if they don't have the answer already. They should be the model for what developers do in El Dorado County as they are working right now. They are fully transparent, and if I pick up the phone or if I text, they answer immediately, and they're very responsive. And I'm sure Bob could follow that as well. And we have had two small town halls. I did challenge them with our volunteers and our donors and told them that the questions would be tough, and I think they were pretty darn tough. And at the end of that meeting, they got a standing ovation from those people that I thought would ask the tough questions. Then they went to Heritage Park, and they got the same ovation. And it just tells you, it should tell all of us what transparency and communication between the county and the developers and the residents can lead to. And again, I just want to thank them for everything they've done and let you know that in concept, as we stand right now, we do support their project. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Josh Pane on behalf of the Mahana family and the Town and Country Village, El Dorado. And August 9th, and thank you for putting it on your website, is finally our notice of preparation meeting, our NOP, August 9th, to scope the environmental document. This is the Town and Country Village. I think we've been in front of you 5 or 6 times back from 2021, starting in 2021, but this is Bass Lake Road and Highway 50. So August 8th is our environmental scoping meeting where you'll have an opportunity to give your input on what environmental issues should be scoped in the document. And that's at 6 o'clock right here. August 9th at 11 a.m. is our virtual meeting. So we'll have both for those who can make it on August 8th and then those who can make it on August 9th. So appreciate it. Appreciate all the input over the last 4 years to get us here today. And if anyone has any questions, just give me a call. We're going to send you new links for the updated documents for the website, John, as
Okay.
the last couple of years we've updated documents. So but the NOP is on there, so, and the notification.
And we shared that on the APAC website, and we shared it through our social media. And we'll have a little update, basically, just to let people know what the dates are, the times. Again, it'll be later in the agenda. Okay. So we'll have an opportunity to make sure people know. And this is another example of an applicant working on a project that's been very engaged with us at APAC, in the community, separate from APAC, and just engaging with residents to have discussions about what's desired, what's possible, what would make a project better. So we appreciate all the effort you guys have made reaching out with us. And we look forward to the scoping meeting here. And 11 a.m. is tough with working, but we will try.
On the 9th, but 6 o'clock live here on the 8th.
Good deal. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other public comments in the room? Oop, actually, I'm missing.
I think Chris raised his hand. Did you, Chris? Oh.
Yeah, John Reslier.
This is a question about something that's not on your agenda. And it's kind of addressed to Mo Johnson. Several communities in El Dorado County are being charged for a fire truck that accompanies an ambulance. And the residents are forced to pay out of their own pocket for the fire truck. And nobody seems to know what the rule is behind this, what's behind this. So I kind of saw Mo sitting in the audience and I said, let me pick on him now.
Yeah.
So you're on, Mo.
All right, John, thanks for the question. Yes, what you're referring to is referred to as or it's called a first responder fee.
Mo, could you talk a little louder?
Make sure this is on.
Yeah, you're on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I've never been accused of not being able to get my message across loudly. What you're referring to is called a first responder fee. That's very standard in fire and EMS for almost 15 years now. There are very few agencies, in fact, that don't have a first responder fee. El Dorado County has been a little bit late in really adopting that process. And really the purpose and intent of that is advanced life support and adding the funding available to pay for the advanced life support. When you look at most agencies, they have what they call a compassionate billing policy. And so if it's a Medi patient is what we refer to, a Medi-Cal Medicare patient, those patients, everybody has to get a bill. You can't discriminately bill. Everybody has to get a bill, but those bills are waived. El Dorado Hills, just as a practice, we don't have one at this point. Is something that we've looked at in the past, but we're not pursuing that at this time. But other agencies in the county are doing that. Really, when you look at the insurance companies, by law, they have to pay this. And so a lot of agencies say if you bill the insurance companies once, if they don't pay, they typically waive them. But every agency has a little bit different way in how they implement their first responder fee. We don't have one here in El Dorado Hills at this point.
So
Yes, sir.
I have to ask this question. If you don't pay the fee, what happens to you?
Like I said, every agency is going to be a little bit different, and I'll get to you next. But every agency is going to be a little bit different. Some agencies choose to only charge that fee to non-residents. Other agencies want to charge for vehicle accidents only. Other agencies charge, one time, and then if it's not paid, it's waived, and others go to collection. So I would tell you, when you look across the state of California, everyone is doing it just a little bit different.
Okay.
So if you call 911 and an EMT arrives, a fire unit's going to also arrive with them?
Yes, that is correct. So the standard practice in this county, in fact, throughout really the state, is you're going to get a fire engine and you're going to get an ambulance, or a medic unit is what we call it. The reason for that is there's lots of fire engines all over the place. We only have 8 ambulances on the entire west slope of El Dorado County, and those ambulances are very busy. At any given time, there's 1 or 2 that might be available. At nighttime, there's more available, but most of the time, those ambulances are responding to a call, returning from a call, or transporting to a hospital or out of service to clean the unit. So it's a scarce commodity. The agencies here in our county, at least El Dorado County Fire, which has a large portion of the county, and then El Dorado Hills Fire has the other large portion of the county. On the west slope, we all have paramedics. On El Dorado Hills, every single employee of the fire department on an engine or piece of apparatus, including the deputy chiefs and myself, we're all paramedics. So we don't have any EMT. We've got 1 EMT, and they're battalion chief. But other than that, that's what that's for.
What's the average fee that you charge?
So the fee it's a calculation based on the cost of providing the service. And so we're not talking about the ambulance service. That's a fee for service that's already there. You're talking about the cost of that fire engine. So when you look at what you're staffing it with, if it's a captain, an engineer, and a firefighter, all paramedics, that's the cost that they're putting to that. You're also looking at the standard materials that might be used, or average materials used. You're also looking at all the other administrative functions that go into that, and there's a calculation that most companies use. Most agencies use a consultant to come up with that methodologies. Others don't use one, and that's where it gets a little bit dicey, but most agencies use a consultant to come up with that number. To answer your question directly, that number is anywhere from $200 to, in the Bay Area and some other places, $600 flat fee.
So in El Dorado County, in El Dorado Hills, it would start at 200 and go up.
Yeah, so in El Dorado Hills is 0. We don't have it right now, but there are agencies to our east. I believe one is around $315, and the other one is around $209. Amador County recently instituted one. The Sacramento Valley, like I said, they've had it for 15 plus years, and then the rest of the state as well.
You may want to tell people that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you, Mo. You answered a very complex question. Thank you.
You got it.
I'll just point out, as many of you know, I'm also on the fire board. We did have a discussion on this item at our last meeting in June, and we went through why is everyone else charging it? Why aren't we? Are we missing an opportunity? It takes a lot of work. You may have to hire additional people or consultants to collect. So you may spend more money assessing a fee, trying to collect the fee, than you'll actually get back in revenues. So at this time, it's not a priority, I think, for the department for our department to take a look at that. It's something that we can always look at in the future. But I would say right now, as an individual board member, it's not a high priority for me to request the chief or the department to look into this more.
Yeah, Director Wright, you're exactly right. I want to give a little bit more on the why. A lot of agencies are charging this fee because when you look at the engine companies, they're providing advanced life support or paramedics, and that costs money more than what your property taxes, pay for really. And so when you look at the paramedics certifications or licensing, when you look at all of the materials that they use, there's zero reimbursement. On the ambulance side of things, there is a fee schedule, and everything that is utilized on that incident with the ambulance, that is all billed for through your insurance. On the fire side of things, if the first responders, the fire engines, there is no recovery. It doesn't come back from the ambulance. It doesn't come back any other way. So it's really to kind of recapture the cost of providing those extra materials. Yes, sir.
So you have a feeling if most of the population knows about these fees before they call 911?
No. And
No.
So
that's,
if people started knowing about this, would they stop using 911 for things like, oh, I tripped and fell?
So I will tell you, coming from a larger, much busier agency, I think initially it was very rough because the firefighters were put into a position of, was this going to cost? Before it was, no, it's not going to cost. But then it was, yes, there is going to be a fee. We never want to really be in that position. I will tell you that lasted for, a couple of months, and now people, they do have that. We haven't had that fee here in this county very long, and so it would be an education process, especially if we decide to do that here. At this point, it is not my recommendation that we in El Dorado Hills move forward with that. I think that we have adequate funding to provide that service, and quite frankly, it's a choice that we made to provide paramedics on all of our fire engines. The challenge is that some of the other agencies that aren't as well funded, that are partially volunteer, partially paid, they don't have the funding. And so really they're looking for every way to recover the cost. It's not making profit or anything like that. It's to recover the cost of materials that they're using on that incident. So if you look at, a small volunteer agency and they're barely surviving right now, their insurance just got doubled. And oh, by the way, a fire engine these days costs over $1 million. Those costs have gone up exponentially. And so they're looking for every penny to pay for it. That's the why.
Thanks, Chief. We have one more attendee online. Sharon Suits, you had your hand up. Go ahead and unmute.
I think that was a mistake. I'm sorry.
Well, it's good to hear from you. Thank you. Okay, so.
I'm gonna address Chief Mo's question especially. And the biggest thing is CAL FIRE is the one, because we're having some issues in Cameron Park going on right now. Ponte Palero, there was a lot of the seniors and stuff are paying for that extra charge and stuff, and sometimes it runs anywhere from $200, $275, and these people are on fixed income. So we're looking into it. My office is, because it's in my district and stuff, that maybe we can solve this problem. But a lot of it is because they don't pay there's no property tax coming out of that Ponte. So a lot of that stuff is waived, and that was one of the reasons why, because they're not paying for any, fire service there is what it is. And so that's one of the issues there is going on, so.
Supervisor John, your hand was up?
Yeah, I want to throw a piece into this. Every facility like Ponte Palmero, they pay fees to the fire department, to the school district and whatever, to cover the cost of what that facility requires. And I do know that Ponte Palmero does pay money to the Cameron Park Fire Department. And that's another piece that no one seems to be able to really understand. I don't want to belabor this, but we have some people in Ponte Palmero that owe maybe $800 or $900 just on having the fire truck come. So it's a big burden to them. So I'm going to leave it at that. I didn't mean it to get this far afield.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Chief has one more thing for us.
Yeah, and then I get your point. I want to make it very clear that some of these large facilities that have multiple patients, we want to respond. We want to make sure that all of our citizens are taken care of. But I can absolutely tell you without question they are a significant impact on the fire and EMS services. Some of the facilities we go to 3, 4, and 5 times a day. When you talk about the one that you just talked about, Ponte Palmero, when you look at the number of times that that agency goes to that facility, it is significant. And it's a large portion of the calls that they respond in totality. So the money that is received or fees that are paid, they're de minimis. You're talking about $25 per parcel. That does not pay or recover the cost associated with providing the service.
Right.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and jump ahead here, and I don't have it on the board. The first thing that we like to remind people about after this is that if you want to become a voting member of APAC, you volunteer to work on a project review or a subcommittee. And then once you do that, you've completed that, you are eligible to be a voting member, whether you want to or not, sure, it's up to you. But if you want to work on a review or a subcommittee, existing APAC members will help you learn about how we do the process and the steps we take. And it's entirely possible you might be educating us. There might be a better method to do it. So keep that in the back of your mind. And moving forward now, Supervisor Communications. So we have District 1 Supervisor John Heidel, District 2 Supervisor George Turnbull. John, you're number 1. Do you have a microphone? We'll go 1 and come back to George.
So there's 2 things I'd like to share with you that happened here recently. The first one is there was a discussion today at the Board of Supervisors meeting about Senate Bill 1383 and the impacts that's having, because one of the provisions that came after 1383 was approved in 2016 is the requirement for organic waste redistribution in the form of either compost or in the form of energy credits. So in addition to the organic waste collection and delivery to El Dorado disposal in our case for grinding, and they actually send it off to an outside facilitator, we have a requirement that's been imposed to acquire certain levels of tons of either organic waste or credits associated with a biomass facility. So at today's meeting, we had a presentation made by Pioneer Community Energy. Pioneer has been basically represented all the municipality associations that are involved with Pioneer to look at, is there a low-cost way to satisfy the requirements the state has imposed at minimum cost, basically, to absorb that. So the Pioneer discussions have revolved around a biomass purchase of energy credits, essentially, with a facility that's down in Southern California. So we wouldn't see the biomass. We don't have anything to do with it. We're buying credits. So it's like an energy credit thing. That has a low cost, relatively low cost, $30 per ton compared to other costs. But that's one alternative the board was looking at. The other is our local solution, and that's with El Dorado Disposal. The El Dorado Disposal part is that we would acquire compost, organically manufactured compost that would come out of Ukiah. It has a specific nutrient value. It has a very detailed processing thing, but what it amounts to is they haul a lot of our organic waste over to Ukiah, and this would be a backhaul of the compost that the county would then be purchasing to basically satisfy SB 1383. So we had those 2 alternatives. One of the things about the Pioneer proposal is it wouldn't cover the full amount of credits we have to have over a 3-year period because it's a graduated scale. The first year is 35%, and then it goes 75%, and then it's 100%. And those are big steps in terms of tons of organic waste we have to have. So the board decided, let's go both routes in parallel. Let's sign up with Pioneer because that demonstrates our commitment to try to meet the state standards. And they are requirements, but they're somewhat flexible in that if you have a slow start. And then the other part is work with El Dorado Disposal to try to get as much distribution of as much of that compost as we can. And the ag community is the primary consumer of that. So we've done a lot of outreach, talking to the vineyards, talking to Apple Hill, talking to people who could use that. And so we basically split it and said, let's go 50% commitment on Pioneer with what's available. And let's put our dedication into developing the El Dorado Disposal organic compost solution to the broadest extent as we can. And I think the key to me in the safety valve, if we really have to meet these requirements, is the use of forest lands to distribute this, because there's certain benefits in terms of forest. So if we can get an agreement with U.S. Forestry Service that if we need to take this compost in and it can be delivered and they can distribute for soil erosion prevention, for nutrient values in terms of new tree plantings they may put in, those kinds of things, maybe we have a good agreement. There's private users, obviously, growers of timber that we can work with this also, but it was a tough decision because you never have enough information to know where you're going to end up. But we figured dedicated, that we're trying to accomplish things. The Cal Recycle won't come after us like they probably will some agencies for just ignoring this. But it is going to provide an opportunity for anybody who has their own garden, anybody that has a community garden or anything else to acquire compost at no cost. You have to haul it yourself because we got to determine where it's going to go. Unless you want 20 tons. If you want 20 tons, we can have the truck delivered to you. But that's a lot of compost to pile up and try to use. But I think we have solutions out there, and I'm pleased to say we're working with El Dorado Disposal to make that happen. The caveat for El Dorado Hills is that our waste management system is coordinated through the Community Services District, which has a franchise. So they work with El Dorado Disposal. So even though the county has made this commitment, in El Dorado Hills, the CSD could make a different decision as to how they're going to work within their franchise to accommodate that. If they decide, for instance, not to participate in some of these programs, the cost all goes to the county because the county had to make a commitment. So we're hoping the CSD will understand the value of this, but that's for them to determine. So that was the first thing. The second thing I wanted to share with you is in getting our new manager of libraries on board, and this is Bryce Lovell. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet him or not. He came from a community that was very creative, thinking out of the box in terms of what you can do with libraries. So we're trying to introduce a program for both El Dorado Hills through our library and hopefully Georgetown to basically have a borrow an electronic tool type of program, wherein we would have power washers initially. For now, are probably not going to be battery operated. They would be plug in, but people use a lot of power washers for certain things, hedge trimmers, lawnmowers. The thing you're not sure you want to go buy one, you can try it and see it. You know, if I get rid of my gas lawnmower, which is what the state's driving us to do, is this electric lawnmower an alternative I can work with? What kind of features do I want to have on it? So it'll give the public a chance to check out essentially a e-tool, utilize it, check it back in. All of the costs would be borne by the county. We're hoping to be able to work with Air Quality Management District because they can get a lot of grant monies, particularly for the evolution into e-tools and away from gas-powered hedge trimmers and blowers and everything else. But this would allow the public to try some of these things and ultimately determine if they have a little bit of work to do, they can just come back every year and check it out and use it if it's available. But then also if they decided, yeah, I just need to make the commitment and buy it and get rid of that old gas lawnmower and go the direction of an electric mower, then they get to that confidence level that this is reliable, it's going to work, et cetera. So that's another program we're trying to implement. We're working with Parker Development Company since they have the overall architectural control for the property around where the library is, the El Dorado Hills Library. So we've met with them already. They're very accepting of putting a shed out there basically for this e-tool storage on a temporary basis. And then there's plans for a larger structure to be built later on that would replace the shed and have a lot more features to it supporting our library. So it'd be an expansive library longer term, but starting the e-tool program sooner to just demonstrate the ability to be able to do that. I think it's kind of a creative way of how a library gets used. You don't go check out a book only anymore. You can do other things. So we'll see how that prospers. And if it's successful, then we'll spread it hopefully to all the hubs. If it isn't, then we'll find something else to go after that would benefit the community. So those are the two things I want to share. Yeah.
What library was that going to be at?
El Dorado Hills Library, which is right off
Silver-
Silva Valley Parkway. And then the other one is Georgetown has been talked about because Georgetown has shown an interest in the same way. And I'll mention all of our libraries are also hubs. So what we call a hub is a place where you can receive services related to medical needs, dental needs. It's an outreach for our Health and Human Services organization to take mobile vehicles and go out and meet with the public in their community, as opposed to saying, well, you're going to have to drive to Placerville to get this form filled out. So we really are trying to get out into the communities, deliver the services where people live, and then determine what their needs are. And by understanding their needs, we can come up and do programs and hopefully get state grant monies to fund those. And so I think we're postured to do some really creative things in El Dorado County in the next several years. But the performance is what shows the measure of success, right? So we're going to have to perform to it. But I'm kind of excited by some of the new ideas that are coming up. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Ooh, they need the microphone.
You need this? There you go.
You know, there's a lot of different things that I've been working on, and one of the biggest things, let me talk about Grizzly Flats. So we got the 5 acres is basically going to lease the property, the El Dorado Community Foundation and South County Alliance. So it'll be 5 acres that's going to be leased for the new community center out there in Grizzly Flats. So I made that happen. That's on the works now, and we're going to follow actually the Boys and Girls Pub that was built, the new one and stuff. So we're going to follow the same kind of plans We're going to use those plans to build this facility. We're going to copy that. Also, we just got some money working with Maria Amarillo Gill for the water agency out there so they can help fix their infrastructure. We're working also, it was approximately about anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 is going to be going out there. But we also are working on $7 million to be able to fix the infrastructure because it was damaged by the fire. And you got to understand that that infrastructure is old. And the problem is it doesn't meet the state's requirements right now. So we're working on trying to get some money for them so they can rebuild for the future. Also, I've been working on so many different things and stuff that's been going on. One of the things is Cameron Park. Cameron Park voted 3-2 the other, not too long ago, basically to look up the drainage problem and stuff because we're hired an engineer through the water agency. I've been working on that project ever since I got elected because the drainage problem's been 50 years plus. So now this can be engineered and stuff like that to map out all the problems out there. So then that way we can go after FEMA money because it's there. And then that way we can fix the infrastructure. So that's one of the good things that's been going on. So that's a good thing too. Also talking about, one of my biggest concerns with Waste Connections is I do not want this to go back on the rate payers if they don't meet if it's going to be not cost effective and stuff. And I don't want to be passed on to the rate payers because I don't think that's fair to them, especially when we're talking about some of the new ideas and new technology we're working on. Also, I'm on the ad hoc committee, so we got a new facility that we're working on to be built, and it's turning green waste into biodiesel. And that'll be a great thing for our county and stuff. So there's so many new ideas, so many new technology and stuff that I've been working on. I think outside the box, and we're actually getting a lot of stuff done. So anyway.
John Resley, you had your hand up?
Yes, a question for both Supervisor Turnbull and John Hydall. We currently pay Waste Connections a fee to take away our organic kitchen waste. What happens to that fee? I think we pay them $10 a month or whatever the billing cycle is to take away our kitchen waste. Will that fee go away?
No, the fees will.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, John, the fees will not go away. The structures are every year, their costs go up like anybody else does with inflation. So it's staff costs, it's material costs, et cetera. So the fee won't go away, but the decision the Community Services District will make is what do they want to do to adjust the requirements for this organic waste? Do they want to just let it float and then the county would cover the costs? Or do they want to step up and be a participant, a partner in this? So that's the way I see it, but it's their determination. But the county is committed to do what we think we need to do to be compliant with the state mandate. And oh, by the way, the state mandates never come with funding. So when we talk about total costs in this year, 2023, before the end of the year, we're talking about numbers of about $150,000 to pay for the, let's see, it's 35, it'd be less than that. It's probably around $85,000 to pay for compliance, basically, to meet the requirements that we have. And then next year, that's going to more than double. So the costs of this are fairly substantial when you get in the out years. And we don't know what's beyond the 3-year program, whether they're going to basically plateau it, limit it to a certain amount of tons, whether they're going to increase it, decrease it. Nobody knows yet. So stay tuned because it'll all be changing somehow. We just don't know in what way.
Yeah, one of the things that I got to tell you, that I was on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee way back when, and we implemented this.
George, could you speak into the microphone?
Can you hear me, John?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee probably 14 years ago, and I've been on it for a long, long time. And one of the things that was proposed, where we were talking about composting way back when. And the problem is I don't know why it never happened, because it was in part of that plan that we put together. There was a swamp committee is what it was. And basically, and they were supposed to meet the 70% diversion rate by 2020. We still haven't reached 70% diversion rate. And to me, we're still not following the state guidelines, and we're not getting there is what it is. And I don't understand why, because it was proposed. And also way back when, every 5 years, that was supposed to come up and go out. So proposals to go out for bid for other waste haulers. So we could get more competitive. But the problem is with a lot of the CSDs, what happened is they gave these places 30-year extensions or 25-year extensions. So that killed that proposal. And I think if we would have had more where it was that it went out every 5 years for proposal, then we could have more competitive rates. And I think it would be better for the community. That's my personal opinion on that, so.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for the supervisors? Did not be easy. All right.
One more
Oh,
thing on
go.
that. One more thing.
Well, now,
The biggest concern that I had, especially when they're talking about compost, they really have no place to be able to take it yet because their facility is too small to be able to handle it. So they were talking about other places that are outside the area, outside the county. So can you imagine what the cost is going to be to be able to haul this thing back in? Especially, it's just, to me, it's mind boggling anyway. So I don't know where they're going to get that. Maybe Union Mine, I don't know.
They did, however, suggest that the recycling center in El Dorado Hills might be a place for that storage, that they might have sufficient room. So we might have at least some organic compost available in the near future, before the end of this year, in El Dorado Hills. You can go down and take your pickup truck, take your trailer, whatever you got, load it up and bring it back and put it in your garden and get started. So we'll see.
got to touch it twice, so
Yeah.
in and out. And there's no, the temporary facility, West Lothian facility where they're doing the construction waste, there's no opportunity for that, is there?
That hasn't entered the discussion
Okay.
yet. I'm not excluding it, but it hasn't entered the discussion, so.
Okay.
That's more of a discussion on biomass and where we put the biomass facilities in El Dorado County, in my opinion, but anyway.
All right. Moving along, we're going to jump into the rest of our agenda. So the first thing up on our list of projects tonight is the Montana Master Plan mixed use proposal. And we talked a little bit about this last month. It came up, I think, literally the day of our meeting when we saw the documents and track it. So the Montana development, they had a phase 2 that they proposed. The applicant worked for many years. He was very engaged with APAC. I think we talked to him like 5 or 6 times. And he made several presentations at APAC. And we had a lot of residents that were adjacent to the project that they provided a lot of input. And when it got to the planning commission, the developer went ahead and said, yeah, these are the concerns that I have heard from residents. He made some modifications based off of the discussions we've had. And he did a full EIR for the phase 2 of Montana. It included a grocer, a hotel, there's a drive-through, there's office and retail. It's, what's that? And the amphitheater, forgot about that. And that was a big discussion. So, but essentially, it took him a long time to get that approved. And then at this point now, it appears, according to what he's submitted in a pre-application. So this is sort of a first check-in for the applicant. There's no more grocery, there's no more hotel, there's no retail. So what they're proposing is modifying the approved master plan for the development to incorporate mixed use. And mixed use means residents.
No amphitheater, though.
No.
It's commercial and
Yeah, so the thing is, it has a commercial zoning, and most of the commercial zonings in El Dorado County, except for the regional commercial and the agriculture, a mixed use is an allowed use. So he has the zoning in place. So what they're proposing, it's the 14.2 acres, 330 dwelling units. And they come in underneath the county's limit on, dwelling units per acre of 24. He comes in at 23.2. It'll be 4-story multiplexes featuring 42 to 72 units per building. There's a TAC meeting that we have the notice on Monday this week. Monday? Maybe it was Friday. It's a blur. So there's a TAC meeting on July 31st. Comments from agencies. It's not us as neighbors making comments, but agencies, and that'd be like transportation, the Air Quality Management District, fire department, CSD, all the different agencies in the county have an opportunity to look at the plan, provide some feedback, and say, hey, this works, this doesn't work, what are your plans for? They get those initial questions answered, then they go back and start working on it to try to figure it out. You can do some singing and dancing. There you go.
Question,
Yes.
since with the application that went through before, there were some agreements made with the applicant of things that he was going to be changing in phase one, such as parking, the size of the parking spaces, that unprotected left turn that people make all the time that's supposedly illegal. Are those with him putting in a new proposal? Are those still on the table, or are those things that have to be discussed again?
Yeah, so those are the questions we'll ask because we will be submitting. County extends a courtesy to APAC to submit questions. We don't participate in the conversation. During COVID when it was Zoom, we accidentally got the invite link. So several times we were involved. But we do provide those comments now if we have time to do it. So we've got about a week. So guess what I'm doing this weekend? So for the TAC meeting, we'll provide those questions because that one is one of the things that we talked to him about, and he recognized that, yeah, that you know, a right in, right out turn there, it needs to be protected. And he proposed, and it was a condition of approval, if I'm remembering, building a median to prevent those right ins and right outs. The way the plan was approved was that Post Street, which is a private road in town center, crosses White Rock, and then would come in, and that it would basically become a road in there, another private road, but it would still be Post Street, and it would exit back out onto Latrobe. We all know that that parking lot's kind of questionable in terms of accessibility, sight lines, and you know, they're on a hill, there's some difficulties there. So he had recognized that. So we don't know is the answer, but we will ask those questions when we submit those. And then, well, if this goes through, we'll obviously all have an opportunity to submit more questions to the Planning Commission, to the Board of Supervisors as this progresses. So I'm just going to go through this so we all see what we're looking at here. So again, we'll try to get those comments in by July 25th for the TAC meeting. We typically don't hear back on them, but a few of them we have. So their application letter was that they believe that it's a prime location for mixed use for a new trend, El Dorado Hills, because typically we hadn't had a lot of mixed use. It's a key area. It's adjacent to town center, next to Montana, which has existing uses that are retail in nature, walkable, you know, between the town center. And so all those elements that, you know, modern development looks to facilitate, that's what they're proposing, and that's what they're suggesting will realize some benefit from it. So, and again, it's impossible to see on this screen. We do have these documents on the APAC website. If you go, there's a menu at the top. It says projects currently under review. Look for Montana, and then you can read this like we're all going to read this. So, but the road does see there is still proposed. Oh well, it says right here. I'll get back. So there's proposed full access movement onto Latrobe Road right there in the middle. There is also, it says it's right in, right out only at the one you just talked about. So I'm assuming that means that we're still going to see that. The signage, but yeah, he had said they were going to do a raised median to block that access so that couldn't, I guess if you're in a Jeep or something. Oh, at the other end, the south end. That was right in, right out too, I believe. It's up, yeah. So, John, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was a participant in the original agreement, and I know that I'm very upset by the fact that the community adjacent to Montano has spent a great deal of time and energy working on the original project to make it something that would benefit the community as well as the builder. And I do know that, for example, John Wegner in the Planning Commission worked a very, very long time to, I'm going to say, almost eke out something that would work and that would benefit everyone. And now we seem that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And what we're doing now is we're throwing away all of the aspects of the original plan that would benefit the community and put in housing. And I know I'm going to call her Fish. She worked very, very hard with that community. And now we just seem to be just throwing it out. And I don't understand how that could happen. For example, the amphitheater, they worked very, very hard to have the amphitheater, to have the music controlled by the owners of Montano so that it wouldn't be obtrusive to other people. They were even going to have security there and all kinds of good things. And now we've thrown all that out to build apartments. And I don't see how you can really justify that. Thank you.
John, I can't speak for the developer. Vinyl Perkins is his name.
Tom, can you speak louder because my hearing is very bad?
I can't speak for Vinyl Perkins. As you know, he was a developer who we all met with several times a few years ago to get this thing approved and work with him to get approved with conditions that benefited the community. However, I suspect a number of things have happened. One is the economics. One, you can't have a hotel if no hotel operator wants to franchise it and operate there. I suspect Vinyl was unable to get a hotel operator to commit. Same thing with a store, a grocery store, outlet. I'm sure he reached out to the name we often hear, Trader Joe's. Would that be a good place for Trader Joe's? Probably couldn't get them to be interested. If he could not make the financing work for his project and get a bank or someone to back it, then he had to rethink. And I think the questions you just asked, when we get Mr. Perkins to come here to an APAC meeting and present his new proposal, when there's a little more details to it, that would be a good opportunity to ask him those questions, because I suspect that's what happened. And he is reacting to current market conditions, just like we see change in projects all the time. So I think they're good questions. Let's wait till he comes to the next meeting and we can ask him at that time, if that's okay with you.
I'm a little intimidated with digging through some of the paperwork, but I tend to go to ordinances and work my way up from ordinances. And as I'm looking at this was approved as a commercial regional plan development overlay. Commercial regional does not include residences. So when he brings in the mixed use, and he alluded to that in the document that he had, that he was digging for, trying to find similar type developments where this would be allowed. And while mixed use, sounds like that would fit, mixed use also drags in some density restrictions. And clearly the density restrictions are substantially overwhelmed with the apartments that he's building here. So I have some real concerns about the size of the complex, the number of apartments and so on, but I'm still feeling my way around some of this development stuff. So I'd like to contribute what I can, John, when you're putting together the questions, and
Make a list.
and holler back at me, so, okay.
So, and you said it was regional? Because I don't know why I thought I saw CC and CL, but maybe it's many elements. I don't know.
Yeah, I dig through.
Well, no, that's okay.
It's CRPD, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, then that sort of defines that a little bit. Okay, so it's not CC and not CL. All right, I got to make notes myself or I'll forget. All right, well, thank you, George. So we'll be making comments. We just heard some good ones. We heard some from John Reslier as well. So we'll get a document together and we'll circulate it in among members and then submit it.
As we move towards becoming Europe, where we'll be all apartments or Folsom at least, and Lord knows my husband's making a lot of money on these bougie apartments. I am concerned again, I'll echo again, that we are seeing our schools in El Dorado Hills impacted, although it's EDCO's desire to continue to send, especially high schoolers, up the hill. I notice in Folsom Ranch, my husband's building his third school there, Alder Creek Elementary. And yet with apartments becomes a higher population of people with children, because we know people with children and young children especially can no longer afford to live here. They are forever renters. I know because I have 3 out of 4 children who are sad to think they may be forever renters. I sadly think this agenda wants to create forever renters because we have people paying $3,000 a month for rent for a 2 to 3 bedroom apartment, but that's another story. So I am again pressing the idea that we are seeing John Adams and the charter school, Montessori especially, backlogged with people trying to get in from Blackstone and other areas, not because they are actually impressed by the mission of the charter school, which we want people at the charter schools who want to subscribe to the mission of the charter school. They're going there because they don't want to hightail it up to Union Mine. They don't want to hightail it up to Ponderosa. They don't want to hightail it, especially to El Dorado High School. So again, if we're not going to address, and now we've got ATK wanting to put another 300 units next to Costco, which we're about to talk about. I don't see this apartment phenomenon ending. I think the days of single-family homes sadly are over. And this is the future, is renters. With renters, again, come high population with children because they can afford to get in, want to be in our beautiful communities. So I'm really sad that we're not seriously taking that into consideration. Thank you.
And that will be one of the questions too, because the school district, they're asked for input when projects are proposed, typically don't say anything, whether it's EDCO or the individual school districts. And I know that, you know, with the senior communities that we have south of 50, that parts of that area, I think the southern parts of Heritage are technically in Latrobe School District. We can't build a school now with, you know, the impact we have in Oak Ridge. There's a reason why those are mostly senior communities, because Latrobe, and I know there's some talk about pulling projects out of Latrobe and maybe annexing them into one of our local elementary districts. We'll have to wait and see. So, but that's a question we'll ask as well. So, thank you for reminding us.
I think with respect to the schools, again, with respect to the schools, when they have a chance to, they always get sent a TAC letter saying, hey, how will this affect your agency? As John said, they never respond. They never say, okay, if you build 300 apartments or whatever number it is, we can, and it's not a senior only, so that probably not have the problem with children. All right, how many of those 300 homes do you expect, what's the breakdown going to be? How many will be young families with 1 or 2 children? And how will that affect your plans for future growth and stuff like that? They never respond. All they look at is they get some money that comes out of that goes to the school district. But how they use that money and how it relates to the new influx of students from new housing developments is never really addressed.
Yeah, we had, gosh, it was forever ago before we were meeting in public, before we weren't meeting in public. But we had the superintendent from the high school district come and we asked them, Ron, Dr. Caruth, we asked, say, hey, so why are you guys giving feedback to these projects? And they had consultants that say, well, we've mapped out what the projected growth rates are, and his staff and his team feels pretty confident in those numbers. When you talk to the principal at Oak Ridge, he says, my numbers are increasing every year, even though I think in the next year they're supposed to start going down. But the reality is they're not. So, and
Well, the reality is
they can't build a new
that
school.
they're pushing the kids up the hill because of declining enrollment as a district. As a community of El Dorado Hills and parents who, like I said, to make it desirable to live within, we all want this, apparently I don't, this whole SACOG 15-minute city philosophy. Well, if we don't have schools that kids can get to and parents can take their kids, I don't know why we can't make these developers say, fine, you know what? They say we don't have the money to build a school. Y'all build contribute 60 million about to build a high school and get her done.
Yeah, the difficulty with that is that school districts are a state level. And
I know. I'm just saying that I think it's irresponsible for us to continue to do this knowing there's no school space.
One of the things I want to address, Kelly, talking about SACOG and the green zones we had, green means go. I don't know if you remember that was brought up in front of the board and the board voted it down. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
No, I'm not seeing this earlier. No.
Yeah, well,
With the state wanting us to create these.
Yeah, the biggest thing is green zones and they still trying to get implemented, but the county voted it down, so.
Yeah, but eventually the state comes down and they make us do what we don't want to do. It's just a matter of.
There's some truth in that. Alistair.
But surely this master plan will be required to have an economic analysis, EPS type deal, where all these things are analyzed and quantified, or are we not doing it?
We don't know. This is just a pre-app. They're trying to gauge the interest from the county and get some feedback. I'm assuming there'll be a J6 meeting at the board and you guys will hear it and provide feedback to the applicant, and that he can decide if he wants to proceed or if he wants to change the plan again. So right now it's just the initial letting people know that he's thinking about this. Maybe they've obviously done some work, so.
Before we use terminology here a lot. Does everyone know what a J6 meeting at the Board of Supervisors is? I'm going to ask one of our supervisors. Can you address that maybe and explain to the audience and the people on Zoom who may not know what it is?
It is a conceptual level review where the developer comes in and proposes their vision for a community. And that allows public input to come in and say, hey, I like this about it. I don't like this about it. Here's my concerns, education, where the kid's going to go to school. The Board of Supervisors would also have a chance then to weigh in. So it's a public comment period. It's the Board of Supervisors and staffs weigh in terms of what do we think would be the best and highest use from a community perspective for this particular property. So oftentimes there's discussions in there that will affect the net result of a developer. And I can use Wynn Communities as an example because they came forward with a J6 proposal to basically do what they're proposing now. And there was a lot of public concern with that particular proposal. And the county was saying, we'd really like to see things ultimately like affordable housing. So do you have ability to build some affordable housing? And by that, I mean workforce housing. I'm not talking about Section 8 housing, but workforce housing, where you have a workplace and you have the housing close to it. That's really the benefit, in my opinion, of having a mixed-use project. People don't have to get in their cars to drive to work. And these are the workers that can afford the rents that are there. But in the case of Wynn Properties, they're actually talking about units you can purchase that would be in that missing middle piece. So that's what the county is trying to emphasize is how do we have a review wherein we get to basically say, these are the things we'd like to see, and yet we don't have an inclusionary housing provision in our ordinances, which we've been trying to get for 3 years, and it's been a very difficult process to get through staff. I think we're finally making a little bit of headway. But unless we have that, we can't require a developer to do it. We basically ask them, right? But once it's approved as a specific plan, then they have a lot of flexibility to develop within those boundaries of the specific plan. And the final maps oftentimes look way different than the preliminary maps that were submitted, right? That's the reality of what happens with the change in economics, the change in time, the developer's desire for something that they think is a unique feature. But again, the benefit for most of these projects with respect to the multifamily type of applications is it helps us meet our RENA numbers. We have a requirement passed on by the state and SACOG that we have to meet a certain level of affordable housing in multiple levels, different categories, very low income, moderate income. And these will help us meet that. And if we get attainment there, then the state probably won't be pushing on us as hard to impose the things that we don't necessarily want. They'll allow us to have a little bit more discretionary decision-making is what we're hoping for. But if you never approach trying to get to compliance, or at least the best you can, you're always going to have those pressures applied to it. You're an outlier, you're not developing housing, and therefore we're going to do this next, right? So we need to have housing. I think we've recognized, in particular, the youth housing, the kid that's just trying to get started and they were going to rent an apartment, but they want to live close to where town center is because that's the action part of El Dorado Hills. And they want to have reasonable amenities and services and stuff, but they want to be able to grow their investment to purchase something at some point, And so we're working on those kind of plans. How can we try to incorporate it? But again, we don't have provisions within our ordinances to require it. So it's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful that with time and the communications through APAC and other sources that the developers will understand that we have a unique set of requirements here, and it's not the mix they see in other communities, Sacramento County, Placer County, whatever. So anyway.
Wrap it up. You have to.
We can't hear her.
Sorry, John. Does the developer get to choose if this is affordable housing or I'll take your term, a bougie apartment, since you were just saying the county doesn't have any, I forget the word that you use, but regulation.
Allocation.
They propose it at a certain density level, and when you do the economics and stuff, most of the proposed apartments that I've seen recently don't meet the affordable housing provisions in RENA.
So if it's 330 units, am I reading that correctly? Is that's 330 apartments? apartments?
As I understand it, that where that's going to end up is not something like town center apartments. It's not the real luxury apartments, but it's not affordable apartments either,
Okay.
right? So how do you get to that mix if you don't have a requirement to do it? It has to be something that the developer feels compelled to do it because the workspace is adjacent and they know that's what it's going to take to fill those apartments. I don't know what the magic silver bullet is, but we're trying to determine what that proper, balance is, so.
If I could, and this is probably one of the few things I will gauge on. I would like you all to visualize this, because everybody gets afraid of the word affordable housing. There is a formula that landlords are now looking for, a percentage of rent to income. That's generally about 38%. Folks, you have to make over $75,000 a year to afford to live in Town Center 79 apartments. $75,000 a year by 38% ratio is $2,280 a month. Guess what, folks? They start at about $2,300 for a 500 square foot apartment and go up to almost $5,000 a month. My daughter is a BSN, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and she cannot afford to live in El Dorado County. So please don't be afraid of El Dorado, the word affordable. We have to start demanding that we not be the land of the $3,000 a month rent. We are losing our young people, our teachers, our firefighters, our sheriffs, because again, do the math and do 38% and see how high that salary has to be. Moms are being forced to work who want to stay home with their children, and they should be able to do that. And I just think we can do better. So that's my.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that, Kelly. One of the things that I'm working on right now is 3D printing concrete homes, especially the people that lost their homes in Grizzly Flat. So we're looking at that. They're fire hardened, they're fire safe is what they are, because this is what's being required, especially what's going on in our state right now, especially with the high fire insurance that's going on. So one of the things that also that I'm talking about too is those people that lost their homes that had no insurance. And the biggest thing is trying to find funding, because the president promised that he was going to help these people out in Grizzly Flat. It never has happened yet. 4 times they've been turned down for individual assistance. So I'm doing it a different way. I'm looking into cap and trade, because cap and trade is all about climate change. Climate change. Well, they lost their homes because of climate change. They lost their insurance because of climate change. So this should be a no-brainer, especially if we can get this through, so we can get these people funded so these people can rebuild out there, especially the people who had no insurance. So that's what I'm working on right now. And these 3D is another concept, is what it is, concrete homes. And we also visited a facility that was up in Plumas County, and they're fire hardened homes too. And we walked that area and stuff like that. And they have 3 concepts, and it's the same thing with these concrete homes. There's 3 concepts. And if the county can kind of adopt it, it would help a lot of the people that, especially they live in the rural area, because that's where they're going to be able to afford to live. But you can't afford to live out there if the insurance is too high. Yeah, I know that, but I'm talking about homes and stuff, because we're talking about that. So anyway, I'm just saying that's one of the things that I'm working on right now, so.
Let me add one thing. I talked about our youth. I didn't talk about our seniors. That's the other real area of growing demand for affordable housing. People on fixed. Well, that's different. But people on fixed incomes that are in our mobile home parks and stuff, when they get to the point they can't afford those rents anymore, where do they go live? If they can't live with a friend or a relative, they could very easily become homeless. And I'd rather not see them in that category. It's homeless seniors. So we have to find a way to provide affordable housing. That's the bottom line.
So for APAC members or members of the community that want to work on this review, we're probably going to do the TAC meeting. We'll provide comments just because we got to get it done in a week. But then after that, we'll open it up and see if anybody wants to work on a subcommittee to review this. If this moves forward, if it becomes more real, then we'll welcome anybody who wants to participate. We did have a lot of people work on it in the last go round when they originally came through this project. So we're moving ahead. Yeah, Costco, EDH 52. So here we go. So, we had a presentation here. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. Here in the building, it was proposed for a Costco they call it the north site and the south site. It's east and west. let's just, we'll look at it. So on the east side, Costco's looking at a warehouse. They're not proposing a fuel station there. And primarily because they're a little tight on the land in terms of size, but also because they had heard feedback in the initial sort of discussions in their community about the impacts of maybe the fueling station that close to residences and more specifically to the school. Yeah, the elementary school. So they withdrew that aspect of the project. It's strictly a warehouse store. But the new change that has come through, because we have not heard anything since they had their scoping meeting. Again, that was a virtual scoping meeting.
September 2021.
21, thank you. So yeah, 2 years ago. That we had a problem with, by the way. So what's proposed now is EDH 52 had talked about having a retail commercial usage on the eastern property. Man, I'm getting backwards in my language.
John, before you go on.
The western property.
Like, there's really two projects here. There's a Costco project on the
on the west side.
west side, and then there's the EDH, proposed EDH project on the east side.
No.
No. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The only reason these two projects are together, they're owned by the same company, but because they have to do an environmental impact report, a full one. And they wanted to make sure that both projects, both sides of the Silver Valley, that they had their final plans in place, because they only want to share and do one environmental impact report, because one bears on the other. Traffic, everything that concerns one issue, whether traffic or geography or environmental issues, they all relate to each other. So they finally, now that EDH 52 has decided what they want to do on the east side, now they can actually start going through the environmental process. Nothing is going to be built for at least 2.5 years. It's going to take a long time. They have to do the environmental impact report. That will take probably a year to get commissioned and done, 9 months to a year.
Yeah.
They may have been working on it silently, but the county, I don't think, has hired a consultant and decided who will do the work for them. So nothing has been committed. Nothing has been approved by the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors yet. I see comments on next door, what's already done. No, it's not done. There's going to be plenty of time for community feedback, for community discussion. So, John, I don't want to steal your thunder. So
It's your thunder. You can have all the thunder.
Okay, you can go on to the details.
So there is a change in the project. There was a scoping meeting, and I think when we talked at community council that this will probably require another scoping meeting because the
use is totally different.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So what they're proposing for the east side, which is closer to the Serrano A14, the new A14, that side, and I'll show you a map in a second. It's 18 acres. They're talking about mixed-use development, 14,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial uses, as well as 304 multifamily units within 5 four-story buildings. We'll have amenities like a pool area, gym, outdoor spaces, and other site improvements. So that it's north of Highway 50 and it's there. So there's a TAC meeting for this as well. It too is on July 31st. So we'll be doing double duty to get the comments in by July 25th. So, and again, that's just for the agencies, the special districts, county agencies, utilities, everybody who participates sort of at a government level. We'll provide some feedback. I don't know if anyone will hear us, but moving ahead. So this is what the old map looked like, and this is how they described it north and south. Forget that. This is what it looks like. You have an east and a west. On the west side, they had proposed a retail, commercial, self-storage, and on the east side, a Costco, no fuel station. So now what they're talking about, and it's hard to see on this map, and I know there's not a color map available, but we'll put it up here. It's on the APAC website. You can go and look at project under review, Costco EDH 52, and these documents are on there now. So again, they have the retail would be closer to where the Country Club Drive extension will connect to Silver Valley Parkway, which is technically the north end of their north project. But and then and then the apartments would be mostly to the east and along the other side where Country Club will wrap around eventually. And this drawing does show Country Club, the extension is being a divided road there, and they do actually have, but it appears to be in this document, a road connecting for the elementary school for Oak Meadow. which is something that residents there and families have been looking for, because even without this project, that's horrible there. In and out, picking kids up at the end of the day on Silver Valley. A community member had the video about the time of the scoping meeting where he was on the west side of Silver Valley from his hilltop home videotaping the cars lined all the way back up to the overpass of the interchange, waiting to get in to pick their kids up at the end of the day. So that could possibly be a good thing. And I think we had talked to the applicant about they should be looking at that. So it looks like they're doing that. But however, the top, yeah, that where it goes up. Yeah, I didn't bring my laser pointer, sorry. So, so hopefully, fingers crossed that if this does move forward, that they have some solutions to meet some of these concerns that will be probably worse with the project being developed. The one thing that I noticed right away was that they still have two signalized intersections. Country Club obviously will be signalized, but they have an signalized intersection to enter both properties from Silver Valley. And talking to DOT over the last 3 or 4 years, they've been saying that can't work. And I talked to Director Martinez, was it last week? Was last week? Last week up at the Planning Commission, and he hadn't seen the plans yet. And I said, they still have the traffic signals. And he said, well, I don't know about that. I'll have to talk about it, but this is what they're proposing. So, and again, the 3 to 4 3-bedroom studio is about the size you're looking at. They'll have first floor garages underneath the buildings. And, you know, this is what they presented right now. This is all the detail we have. There's nothing much more than this. There's going to be a scoping meeting. We're hoping to get more. And you got good questions, I know.
Quick question. When this first came on the table, they were discussing putting a gate, an additional gate into Serrano.
Oh, that's part of the A14 village, yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't this. I'm
No,
mixing
no.
them up. Okay.
But, well, actually,
Because I was wondering if that was the gate, not truly to Oak Meadow. Because as much as I would love an extra entrance, especially with a signal.
Oak Meadow would be up here.
Yeah.
A14 would be over here.
Oh, so that's what that is.
What is the,
Got it.
I can't remember the name of the road. Oh, well, if I had a map, I'd tell you. But yeah, so that road would connect to Country Club. And it appears they're suggesting they would be extending Country Club in some fashion, whether that's accurate or not, until we get into the nitty gritty. But this is what was presented last week, and this is all we have to look at. So we'll provide those comments by the 25th, so that they'll be in time for their meeting on the 31st. And I try to get a little closer. It's still kind of hard to see. That connection for Serrano A14 is there on your right, and it is at the top is the one that looks like it might be for the school.
This property is currently
Let's
zoned commercial retail, big box commercial. So that's obviously it fits the Costco. They were going to, this property has changed zoning multiple times. It was residential.
Tom, please talk into the microphone.
This property is currently zoned commercial retail. That's
Regional,
big,
yeah.
broad, regional, for big box type stuff. That obviously fits at Costco. It does not fit the proposed new development with residential. This property has been zoned and rezoned several times. It was originally, back in the 80s in the El Dorado specific plan, it was viewed as a highway stop. Long time ago, that's what they envisioned 40 years ago. You know, it was going to have fast food, gas stations and stuff like that, but it was zoned residential. 15 years ago, it was rezoned to.
It was 2008 to 2010,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah. And the land use map from the general plan and the zoning didn't match.
Right.
So it was one thing they had to correct it. So they corrected it. You know, they put a freeway on-ramp through there. So probably the more appropriate zoning would be that commercial regional, highway serving sort of things where that's where you put gas stations. You don't put them in the middle of the neighborhood, you put them against the freeways. So,
Yeah.
so they did rezone it to meet that need, to meet that land use description.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that we'll have to address in our letter is, you know, what's the status of the zoning and what are they planning on doing about it? Are they gonna change it?
It is a general plan amendment.
Right.
General
We have
plan
to change
amendment, yeah. So, and then again, if they, and it's a rezone for the community commercial or the community limited, I can't remember, I want to say it's community commercial, and mixed use is applicable for that. And John Reslier has his hand up.
Yeah, this this new proposal meets something that I was very, very concerned about, the safety of the children at Oak Meadow. I was concerned that if you put a Costco warehouse adjacent to an elementary school that has a wide open campus that would have thousands of people visiting this facility every day, this was a security problem for the children that go to that school. And this new proposal seems to mitigate that to some extent, where you don't have that kind of turnout of people on an hourly basis throughout the day close to an elementary school that I said before is a wide open campus. So I do see this possibly as a better mix, a better way to take care of that problem. The other thing I want to mention, I think the Silver Valley interchange is almost illegal. They have to be a certain distance apart from each other, interchanges, and they just about made I think they worked on it so that they were within the distance between them. And I have to wonder why we had to do it that way. And I don't understand why no gas station, because I know many, many people go to Costco to buy gas. So they won't use this particular Costco. They'll go down to Folsom anyway to buy their gas and to shop. And that's my take on all of this. Thank you.
So, and again, Silver Valley Parkway was originally intended, the interchange, as the main entrance for Serrano El Dorado. That changed. The other entrance was actually right here on Wilson behind that went up the hill behind the fire station. There was no fire station, but Wilson was the other entrance, and they changed it to the Serrano Parkway where it goes through the golf course. And honestly, this applicant funded a big part of that interchange with their other project, Blackstone, White Rock Village, more so than Serrano funded it. They eventually started contributing, but they had a trigger to, I think it was 300 housing units in a specific village, if I'm remembering right. And they stopped at like 290 something.
Yeah, right before.
And then once AKT started, they all eventually contributed, but there was a bit of foot dragging on that. So
The point I wanted to make too, though, is with the new application, Country Club Drive becomes a necessity.
Yeah.
So DOT has started talking about what is the routing between Bass Lake Road and Silver Valley Parkway. We have a line on a map, but that's all it is.
They
So
have 3 projects.
we've had various activities going on out there to look at the properties that are involved, to look at where the least impact would be, to look at where the right routing of that would be. But DOT is now actively engaging in those discussions and stuff, where before they said, well, someday we'll have to figure it out. Now is the time we got to figure it out. So beware of proposals related to what that routing will be through that section between Bass Lake and Silver Valley to make this connection.
So there's 3 projects that are all in the CIP, the 20-year horizon for our capital improvement program. I was adding it up last week. It's $85 million worth of projects now. What will it be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? It will not be $85 million. It will be a lot more than that. So, but it's been long planned as a frontage road. Let's see what's proposed and what other projects might come along. But I think the park and ride, I think that little stub out it's less than $1 million they're working on right now in terms of the extension of it's Old Bass Lake Road for now. It'll be Country's Love later. So,
John, I really need to step back just for a second. We have a TAC meeting where we have 2 apartment complexes being considered.
Right.
One thing that drives me batty is the fact that we don't seem to look at a holistic view on traffic or other mitigating factors when these things are being proposed. I did a quick drive between the 2 proposed sites today, just to calculate how long it would take me to get from one to the other along White Rock. Very clearly that both of these things are going to have profound impact on both Highway 50 and White Rock. And for us to not take into account the impact of a total of over 600 additional dwellings without really considering the impact on traffic And then you add to that the other proposals we have right now on the table with the business park. There has to be a better way of looking at these issues in a more holistic view and saying, okay, we have 6 of these things in front of us, or 5, at least 5 of them in front of us right now, 6 with the wind proposal. How do these all add up? And at what point are we going to end up with a gridlock? And we came doggone close to hitting that point with Project Frontier. I don't have the solution. I'm just bringing up the concern.
And that was part of this when Tim addressed it. Hey, they're working together on a sort of combined environmental review. And so it's always balanced, right? A lot of times if somebody were to approach it as a combined, they're saying, hey, they're hiding something. They're mixing 2 projects together. But if you don't, and you're doing one review and another review, they're saying, well, you're not combining them. So, well, who are you going to please? You can't please everyone. They've been pretty open about trying to see all the impacts of what they're proposing between the 2 projects. And fingers crossed that this is a good process for this. It might not be a fit for all the other ones, but we'll see. Do you have a, Danny?
Yeah, here.
It's just that I totally agree with you. That in fact, I myself, just like doing these things, was going to make a plan for the whole of this area, put all the new projects in, put all the things, because it doesn't make sense. And I don't know whether the planning department, aren't they responsible to do at least a little bit of a plan? That's all I wanted.
We also need to understand that SACOG, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, is responsible for the Metropolitan Regional Transportation Plan. So we get included with other counties and cities that are in our area in terms of what does this regional transportation look like? And a lot of their solutions end up being, basically supportive of the state. Get out of your car, get on your bicycle, use the transit systems, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not planning for expansion of capacity on roadways. That is something that's been very clear that the state is not planning on that on our highways, with the exception of maybe stuff in LA. There's a few proposals still going through down there, but we need to understand that that's not the county's responsibility, because the biggest impact of this whole area, in my opinion, is going to be Folsom Ranch. 11,000 homes. We're not talking 384 apartments. We're talking 11,000 homes right off of White Rock that want to come this direction to get to the Costco, right? So how do you do regional planning in El Dorado County when all of that demand is driven by Sacramento County? If somebody like SACOG isn't actively engaged in doing those things, and hopefully they are, then I don't know how you come up with those solutions. We can only resolve what we have control over. We can't deal with the things that are outside of our jurisdiction.
Aren't there funds that one can access to, for someone to address these? I mean, if the people here understand it, you understand it, but it's absolutely insane not to have someone look at it. So there's got to be someone to do it. I'm not suggesting the Board of Supervisors does, but heck, even we could do it.
Hey, settle down. But no, Alistair, his analysis is very informed by his experience, and it's very detailed. So when he steps forward, I'm always thrilled to see what he's presenting to us.
Definitely puts more work on this.
No, then I turn to somebody else. So we do have a couple comments online, and we got to get going because we're. So Amy, let's see. Amy, I know that you've been looking at this for a long time, and you're a resident right there. Could you jump in?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this is a project I'm watching very closely. I have children at Oak Meadow. I wanted to echo the comments about the high school. Obviously, I know that everything's disjointed and there's not a lot of control there. But when we were looking at Blackstone, we saw that the Union Mine bus ride was going to be 2 hours and chose not to live there because of that. Anyway, I have some questions about the design. I'm a little confused on the map. It's hard to see. Where is the green belt exactly? Is the country club lane going directly over where that Greenbelt Creek area is? How are they going to account for that?
You know what? I do not know. Looking at this, I'm trying to look at the old maps.
Most of that's on the north side.
It's north of it.
That's
like
Parker property.
it is. It's between the Serrano development, the Stool, and this project site.
Okay.
I believe the country club, the way that it's suggested right now, it touches the top of the property. I don't think it hits any sort of wetlands on that side. I think the other side is more wetlands intrusion on the west side where the Costco would be.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to envision. And then, okay, so the park lands on the other side of Country Club Drive. And then the other just thing I'm questioning is why they're putting the business buildings directly next to the school instead of on the other side of the complex. As someone mentioned, you know, safety at the school, it's not a closed campus. I think the developer should actually fund, you know, to support making it a closed campus. That's one recommendation, but I'm not understanding why they chose to position it that way and not have the residences closer. So that's just one comment I have. And then lastly, you know, someone mentioned wanting a gas station on the property, and I fully support the removal of the gas station. It was a health hazard for the school and for the families. That was something that, you know, we really appreciate that the developer changed. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And I know we'll hear from you in the future as this progresses and we get more information.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. So with that, okay, I guess we'll move it. Oh, go ahead, Kelly, while I get this
That's
ready.
okay. I also want to be, you know, somebody said at our house, we call it the P word, Parker, because I think it's a bad word. Let's remember too that somebody with the P word wants to rezone a golf course and put approximately 1,000 more units, I believe it was, or some ridiculous number in our beautiful space that used to be our old golf course. And I wouldn't doubt if that becomes high density mixed, more jungle gym apartment complexes, since that's what it seems to be we're moving towards. And I really hope that we'll all fight together because really in the end, this is about the integrity of our general plan. This is about the integrity of our traffic mitigations that many before me, probably some of you, worked really hard. We came here in 2002 with a basic understanding of what it was going to be like to live in El Dorado Hills. And I'm feeling a little emotional right now because I sat in gridlock in Folsom the other day trying to get out of Kaiser up Iron Point Road, and I saw the apartments and I saw the Costco, and I realized this is what our home is becoming. Most of us did not move here to live in a city. We moved here to live amongst open spaces, the critters and all that comes with it. And I don't think anyone, any developer, any whoever has the right to a rezone, first of all. I think we have a sound general plan, and I understand some of these projects are already within that general plan. I just hope we're going to be really cautious about what you just said eloquently, what we're going to become traffic-wise, congestion-wise, and will we then not be the place that's desirable to live because we're just going to be another city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you have a microphone back there? As long as you're green.
Here we go. Okay. Yeah, general orientation. Thank you, Cindy. A general orientation question. So I'm assuming that I'm returning, going back home from the El Dorado County Library, and I'm on Silver Valley Parkway, and I'm heading home, going back to Four Seasons. Normally, what I do is I will, instead of staying on Silver Valley Parkway, I will turn right on Clarksville Road?
Yeah, Clarksville Crossing.
And connects back to Silver Valley Parkway. So my understanding was that this proposed Costco development was going to be between the old Clarksville Road and Silver Valley Parkway.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
In that dip between Silver Valley and 50, and Clarksville is on the west side of that.
Okay, so has that changed or altered in any way?
No, the Costco plan, as far as what we have with these new documents, nothing's changed.
Okay.
They are talking about 3 access points along Clarksville Crossing. And one of the questions we asked was that it's a 2-lane road. It goes under the highway. If you need to expand that road, you just got to change something in the highway.
Okay.
That's prohibitively expensive, which is one of the reasons that they want to be here, because they don't want to improve an interchange at Missouri Flat or Cameron Park or anyplace else. So we don't know. That's why when I saw that traffic signal was still there, it looks like they're planning on that being part of their solution for their circulation. And according, when we talked to the transportation director, he said, you know what? We don't know that that's viable, but we'll find out as it gets reviewed.
Now, I'll just finish up here and then I'm done, at least for now, okay?
There's still time.
That's fine. And by the way, John, thank you for sending me the information.
Oh, no problem.
As you drive along that Clarksville Road, between Clarksville Road and Silver Valley Parkway, there is what appears to be some ancient buildings, for lack of a better term, or some kind of structures. Is that going to be, are they historic? And is that going to be removed?
They're not Tong. I'm trying to remember what family it was.
I don't know. Melinda, you have any of that? Right.
He created all kinds of exotic plants and everything else. And then at one point, Mimi Tong, who lived in Clarksville, told me the story of his house caught on fire and the bats were flying out and it was just a big event. So he's really a character. So again, the stuff that's left is nothing like what was there when we were first out there in the early 80s. And it's just, I wouldn't call it historic. It's, a range of dates. It doesn't meet any of the criteria. And it's so heavily disturbed now, it wouldn't be considered that at all. So.
Also, Bill, or on the original plans for Costco, and maybe they've changed, they were not going to take this 3 acres for either their warehouse or for parking. That includes that area that was just that site. They were not going to build on that area. For reasons, I don't know, they may have changed. We'll have to just follow the plans and see what they do.
And I think my understanding is there's no known cultural resources anywhere in that, right? Because I've heard of people being told by real estate agents that there's Indian burials over there and all that kind of stuff. You're not aware of anything, are you? No. Yeah, okay. Again, it's just that social media stuff. All right, thank you.
My name's Juanita Brand, and back to how you were talking about regional traffic and how what Folsom does affects us, vice versa, I guess.
She's got one.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We live off of Saratoga Expressway, by Finders Way, and still don't have a stop sign. We've been working on that. But what I'd like to say is a year or so ago, we were on an online meeting Folsom had with DOT, and they're planning an interchange with 50 at
Empire Ranch.
Empire Ranch, which is like a mile from Finders Way. And we said, are you doing anything to mitigate the impact that's going to have on us getting in and out? And they're like, you're in a different county. We don't care.
Yeah, I was at a meeting with you virtually, yeah.
Yeah, so
And it's an interesting project. It's either 3 years to 10 years out, and it's they're not going to do traffic signals. They're going to do roundabouts for the on and off ramps. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of Costco, it's a big deal. We've been looking at it for a long time. This is a significant change, but there's very little here for us to put our hands on. We're anticipating there probably will be another scoping meeting. And then, I think our real work will come with the draft environment impact report, and we get our hands on that. But if there's another scoping meeting, like any of them, I encourage you to go and to attend them if they're in person. If you can, do the virtual one, make comments, submit comments through email or a written letter. And just, if you have questions, ask them. The more input there is, hopefully the better result we get from the projects.
And our chair, John, does a great job of posting the documents on the APAC website. It's a little bit easier for a lot of people to go find documents on the APAC website than it is to go to the county. But if you want to go to the county documents, go to El Dorado County and then track it, TRAKIT. Then they'll ask you to register, set up a password and all that. But then you have access to the original documents that are filed with the county. It's still very difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
It's a failure on the planning department. That program is just awful. But if you persevere, you will be able to get the information on, and they've made it a little easier. If you type in Montero or Costco, you finally get to the information.
Sometimes.
Before you had to use an assessor's number or something, which who the hell
Still.
knows what that is?
Still.
I will mention on behalf of the planning and building department that they have established a web page for these kinds of projects now where they're taking the stuff that would normally have only gone into Track It, and they're posting that on that web page. So we are trying to improve the transparency, the access by the public without having to register and track it.
Yeah.
We recognize there's a lot of deficiencies.
And that was one of the things we talked to the planning staff about, is that when they send a document out saying, hey, there's going to be a public meeting, there's going to be something's been filed, and they'll say, look on Track It. You can make, as long as you have a Track It account, you could do a direct link directly to the project. And so we do that on the APAC website. We try to remind everyone, hey, you got to log into Track It first, go back to our website, click the link, and then it'll open, you can see it. So, but we also download everything that's on Track It, and we put a copy on our website as well.
Now, I'll mention there is an initial environmental assessment that gets submitted with the project submittal, and I went through that very quickly, and there was a couple of them that the responses, I wasn't sure how they arrived at the answer.
Oh, inside the
because my
packet?
answer would
Yeah.
be totally different.
Yes.
So it requires an explanation of why do you think there's no impact for this particular element? So they've started the environmental discussion, so to speak. So anyway.
So more work to do. Keep your ears open. We gotta get moving, gang. So subcommittee, I put reviews, I should have put review, and assignments. Essentially, we started forming some standing subcommittees, so we are prepared to address transportation with the same sort of core group, and other people can volunteer. And so we have a list of things that we're looking at. Obviously, transportation subcommittee, obviously we want to look at the Carson Creek R&D parcel split we had talked about before, because they have some traffic numbers in that. I have an email, I'm reaching out to the PacWest, the developer that owns the project, waiting to hear back. They were kind enough when they had a different project there to engage with us. I'm hoping we can get some more information, but I have not heard back from them yet. The Latrobe Road Self-Storage Project that we talked about a little bit last month. Again, they had a TAC meeting. It's a conditional use permit. George has been looking at that. I had a question for George, and I'll ask that as soon as I get through this list. Talking about a Parks and Recreation Subcommittee, and the idea with the concept with that is that we're looking at the regional planning aspects of park development that's proposed for like Bass Lake, the potential parks at the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, Carson Creek specific plan, regional park, the big park down there, and potentially anything in future with wind, anything that comes up for their parkland dedication, their requirements. And the goal is to explore the development, how they're consistent with the general plan and with each specific plan in terms of parks and recreation, plus where it touches traffic and environmental impacts in terms of if there's parking, adequate parking, not enough capacity on the roadway or, elements like that. And, typically like we're here, obviously in El Dorado Hills, we have the CSD who does Parks and Rec, but we're not looking at their internal things like their funding or designs. We just want to provide resident support of Parks and Recreation as it's impacted by development that benefits our residents, that benefit the county, benefit the CSD, and ultimately developers as well. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to recall is difficult today. And then for new project subcommittees, obviously, we're looking at EDH 52 Costco, the Montana Master Plan mixed use, as if that moves forward. We're still looking, there's been no update on the Sophia Parkway Neighborhood Retail Center at Sophia and Green Valley Road, where they're talking about some drive-throughs, the quick quack car wash. The Carson Creek R&D parcel split, depending on what they're coming up with, we're gonna need people looking at that, and the Latrobe Road self-storage. But I did have a question for George, because you had pointed out.
Before you get to George, I don't see the environmental subcommittee listed.
Thank you.
And
we want help with that too.
Yeah.
If you want to elaborate,
well, during our Project Frontier, we ended up with 5 very salient studies related, and I think those are still very good benchmarks for us to use, ranging from biological to cultural/tribal issues, obviously, air control, air quality issues, basically anything that would impact or normally in a environmental impact study review. And we obviously want to see that committee grow and become more vibrant and be up.
And the idea with farming committees like that is that we have a group of people that are engaged with it. And if they can't do it every time, at least they set some like groundwork for other people who want to participate. We can have people who come in and say, okay, this is where we started before with this. This is sort of the groundwork they've laid. And now if you take that and use that as your lens as you're looking at other projects, the goal with the standing subcommittees is just to have those sort of resources, those folks that have sort of very narrowly focused, ready to go and help the rest of us. So if anybody's interested in any of these we've talked tonight, our email address is on here. If you tell me tonight verbally, I will not remember. I don't remember what I wrote on this yesterday. So, but yeah, if you email either info@edhapac.org or what our email addresses are on the agenda as well. So, however, if you have anything you want to offer, even if it's just some comments, we want them. So, George, thank you. So you had mentioned about the zoning on the R&D and the self-storage. So I was, and I looked at it quickly because you guys sent it over this afternoon. So when I looked at the ordinance, it says that self-storage mini, or I'm sorry, yeah, it does say self-storage, not storage. Self-storage mini storage, it's a conditional use permit in the R&D. Is that what you saw, or you saw something different?
No, I didn't see that at all.
Okay, well then I'll find that again. I'll send it over to you. It has it as a, in the, the list in the matrix of things you can do. It is a conditional use permit, and that is what they've applied for. So I was just sort of wondering, I'm gonna look closer at what you guys sent over this afternoon. But just things like that, when we look at the zoning ordinance, there's a lot in there. And trying to figure out what's applicable, what's not applicable, where maybe there can be a conditional use permit or a special use permit, trying to get our heads around that. But I'll bug you with that offline, because when you sent that over today, I went, oh wait, I didn't see that. And I went back and just looked at the matrix and it said CUP for mini storage. I didn't know if there was another, I didn't see the definition list of uses. I have to go back to that.
I think one of the major concerns with that project, and to me it's really, I would have to get the zoning figured out, but to me it's a nice one to have because people put their stuff in there. There's not daily trips to a storage center. I mean, it'll have a very low traffic impact on access in the town center and the Broad, the Blackstone, the other areas. So for that extent, it might be good. But I think this incubator study, we don't know what an incubator is and how it relates to self-storage.
Right.
Now, an incubator, to me, that sounds like research and development.
Mm-hmm.
If it's some sort of buildings where they encourage people, maybe that rent a space for a year where they try out a design or a project.
That'd be the traditional.
Yeah, that's development, that makes sense. But it's undefined in the application and it's raising a question, but what is it? And so if we can find out what it is, that might solve a lot of the issues and concerns that people have.
Well, the other issue is also environmental. Obviously, we're not going to have any control over what is stored in these individual self-storage areas. And with the Carson Creek running right next to this, you know, there are obviously issues with regard to the preserve associated there. So, you know, we need to work those things out also.
Usually the self-storage places don't allow you to store chemicals, paint, stuff like that. They usually have, but again, people can put stuff in
In
boxes.
theory,
In theory,
yes.
yes. I agree, it's in theory. There's restrictions on what you can put in, but how those are enforced, I couldn't tell you.
That's why they sell insurance to guard against hazardous materials that are being stored.
Okay, so again, anybody who wants to volunteer, even to make comments for the subcommittee, our emails are on there, or, you know, if you can make me remember, talk to me tonight. I need help with that. I'm glad that Josh was here tonight. Town and Country Village, and again, there's a scoping meeting. Let me hide this so I can see what I'm looking at on this screen. There we go. 2 scoping meeting dates. Town and Country Village, obviously it's at Bass Lake Road Country Club Drive. It's just north of Highway 50 east side. So the notice of preparation for the draft EIR went out. The review period for that, July 18th to August 17th. We'll probably be making some comments. And then there are 2 scoping meeting dates. One is in person. It's here in this building, Tuesday, August 8th, 6 p.m. And the nice thing about being in person here in the building, there's exhibits. You can talk to Josh. You can talk to county staff, any of the consultants that they have on hand, and ask questions. Any questions you submit to a scoping meeting get included in the environmental review, and some form of an answer is provided. You might not like it, might not satisfy your question, but they do address the questions that you submit. And then the virtual scoping meeting is the next day. It's 11 a.m. And there's a Zoom link. We have it on the APAC website as well. And so for comments for that July 18th to August 17th, again, 5 p.m. August 17th, we'll probably have something. We send in, we have some questions or comments, some observations. But I encourage you, it's a chance at a scoping meeting to come and see the exhibits, and to talk to the people that are proposing something, and you could ask questions. You might ask a question and make them go, hey, you know, that's something to think about. Maybe we can make the project better, or maybe we could alter it to achieve a better result. So, and again, the project, I described it, but the way that it's working in this document, it's that there's a development area, and then there's a second project site that's a program study area, and they're going to have elements of the program study area included with the project review, so that it's they're required to look at sort of the full picture, but they're not proposing anything right now. But there is potential later to have other development on the program study area, not specifically just we're talking about with what's proposed with the 2 hotels, museum, event center, 112 cottages. I remember that. 56 for employee, 56 that are available for rent for day use from the hotel. So,
Employees, thank you. We think of it as we divided two above Country Club Drive.
Yeah.
It's going to be a real boom for the hotels and the resort area.
And so the
We're talking
cottages,
about workforce housing basically, and that's what that is.
employees that, you know, you can have a really short commute. But the cottages are on the north side of Country Club as it curves up. The hotel and the more commercial development is on the south side of Country Club and more towards the highway. So we've talked a lot about it. I don't want to make you talk anymore, but you've been very kind with your time, and we always appreciate the fact that you're engaged with us, not just here at APAC, but in the community when you're talking to neighbors. So, and again, the project.
We'll also be walking the neighborhoods as well. We'll be in Cameron Park coming up before the 8th and 9th to make sure people know about the 8th and the 9th. So, and we'll be at some of the shopping centers talking about it. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to hear from people.
So, and here's just from the newest document, the project sites here, Country Club on the north, the highway to the south, and Bass Lake Road on the west side of the project site. And we could go through, they're looking for a general plan amendment, specific plan amendment, because the Bass Lake Hills specific plan does not include this sort of usage. So they're talking about amending that to facilitate this. There'll be a rezone It's RE10 right now, so 10-acre properties, and they're talking about community commercial, multi-unit residential, which is multifamily, some open space, and then, you know, the planned development, sort of suffix they put on all those as part of a planned development area. And again, there's a lot of other elements to internal roadways, the Class 1 bicycle path that we've talked about quite a bit, that a lot of people are very excited about, and preserving a lot of the history, the old wagon trail, and a lot of elements that a lot of people don't see as they're driving by on the road. So I'm sure we're going to actually come back again. So and then again, that's an old slide, but I just wanted to see one, you know, be able to share. That's what we had talked about before. Yeah, the initial one from 21, and then this is the newer sort of the program area or the proposed study area in the dark yellow. The proposed development areas are in the light yellow, and all these documents are on the APAC website as well. So, and then that's the old view of the.
That's still the view of the hotels on both
And
sides of the Oak Grove and the
event center.
Event center, family gathering, the 2 restaurants, and then walking right into the Oak Grove and the museum on the top floor, that front building facing the highway. Yeah, and we had a great history meeting. Some folks came to that history gathering.
Yeah.
Everyone coming to that. That was good.
Well, and so again, you should get out and look at the scoping meeting, and then we'll be providing more feedback as the project moves forward, and develop our subcommittees look at it and have questions or comments. So, and then quickly some area project updates. I don't know if this was on the consent calendar or it was at 10 a.m.
It got postponed 1 week, and so it'll be heard on the
Okay, it'll be next
25th.
week.
But there's 2 parts to this. One is the CFD, the other is development agreement, right?
Yes.
They're both going to be heard on the 25th.
East Ridge is part of the Valley View development, which includes Blackstone and White Rock Village. It's the most easterly part of this. They have a unique approach. Their development agreement's expiring. They're talking about, and again, this is sort of a loose map of what we're looking, but it's way to the south of the highway. And that's their tentative map for sort of the lots they envision. The difference here is that with this new development agreement, they're talking about a one-time $500 per dwelling unit fee that'll be tied to a CPI, so it'll go up as inflation goes up. And it'll be used for any purpose benefiting the community determined by the Board of Supervisors. And so I think we are always concerned about, well, what community are we talking about? Because the impacts are here in El Dorado Hills. It's on the Board of Supervisors. We have a board right now. They're not always going to be the board, sorry. So as members change, they can take that money and do what they want. So, and then there's also the one that we couldn't figure out is, and maybe we'll get into it, as, we've talked about it a little bit. The CFD, the Melrose, the tax revenues, excess revenues from that are proposed to go to the county for, I know Auditor Harner talked about road
maintenance is what he's focused
yeah,
on.
but I don't know how you codify that. It's a Melrose thing, so then you're changing the CFD, and it's 2 different things. And then CFD, we talked Prop 218. People get very funny about where they say the assessment is for X. So the money's going to the county. I can't pretend to understand it, but the board's been looking at it. Planning Commission moved it forward. They had a lot of questions about it, but I guess in a week we'll know more.
Yep.
So I just want to let people know, it'll be the 3rd month in a row we've had this thing on here. Sorry, guys. And there's the Planning Commission. Chief's here tonight. The fire department, the CSD had questions about, this is an expired 20-year development agreement. Things have changed in terms of standards, in terms of fire response and parkland. But I believe, Chief, you had a conversation with the applicant. It seems to be pretty squared away. I won't ask you to divulge anything, but they were satisfied with your conversation? Okay, are you satisfied? Okay, there we go. They have heard the fire department. And I appreciate the fire department's very involved, so. And the same, I don't know, I should ask, CSD talked to them? Or Jeff, put you on the spot.
That's okay, I was ready.
there was a conference call in their first CSD and fire station on all at the same time. That didn't really, that was just to satisfy the requirement from the planning commission, from my perspective. They have re-engaged to hear our request, and we saw this announcement of the public hearing and reached out again and see if they're going to respond, and nothing yet. So we had a conversation.
All right. The more you know. So there you go. So, but that was a requirement. The planning commission recommended that those discussions happen. And so it sounds like they made an effort to have discussions. So we'll learn more when the board considers it in a week. A lot of people have asked about is it behind CBS? They keep saying behind CBS. It's west of CBS along White Rock Road. It's sort of a remainder parcel that PG&E is looking at for, it's like a gas transmission or gas. I'm still not clear. I can't find it on the CUP web, on the California Utilities Commission website. Somebody said it was on there. I could not find it. But it's a transmission sort of natural gas facility that PG&E is considering developing. But they require a certificate of compliance to take these remainder parcels and sign an APN to it there so that they can develop something there. So that's going to be at the zoning administrator tomorrow.
They're grading.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked for a grading permit and I did not find one. Yeah, okay, I couldn't, was it in Track It?
No, it's not tracked. It's in the building services permit.
Right. Their utility, I do not know. I don't think they do. But people keep asking what that is. It's PG&E something. They're not the most popular people in the world. So, well, in California anyways. So, but I wanted to let you know that's going up to the zoning administrator tomorrow. Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, obviously we provided our feedback. And I think, John, you gave us a little update that now instead of August, it's looking like more October, December.
October, November.
November, okay.
First meeting, and then there's planned 2 meetings.
Okay.
We're trying to have the first one be a meeting in El Dorado Hills. Hopefully we'll be able to get the district church to agree to that. So it'll be run like the planning commission hearing was 2.5 years, 3 years ago. No guarantees on that, but we're working to try to make that happen. And then once the review cycle's occurred and the public input has been made, then the second meeting would be the deliberation by the board, which would be up to County Board of Supervisors chambers.
Okay. So we'll look forward for that information. And as soon as we know, you'll know. We'll post it on the website. We'll send it. We'll post it on social media. We don't generally send an email unless it's for our agenda. And so if it's on the agenda, you'll see it there too. So, and with that, sorry guys. So public meeting comments, if you have comments you want to submit before the meeting, 5 p.m. the Monday before the meeting date. And so our next meeting is August 9th. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. But if we're in person, we're here in this room, 6:30 p.m., virtual on Zoom and all that good stuff. But thank you for sitting and listening to us and for participating and giving us good information and good feedback. So if anybody wants to work on a subcommittee, email, and we'll put you to work. So if there's nothing else to go back to, we are adjourned.
Thank you, John.
Well, thank you guys. Oh, and now I'm going to stop recording.
And thank you very much.